Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session. The session is themed Beyond the Fields, the Future of Agriculture. And together we have a couple of cool panelists and myself. My name is Yvonne Gatoto and I'm part of the SFF team. And today we're just going to hear more about, the future of agriculture and what were the fundamental gaps that the agriculture value chain is seeking to address? How did COVID affect this goal up to now? And also how we are rethinking in our different organizations, our approach to tools and big picture goals in the longer term. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. But then I think we're missing one panelist, but I think she's going to be joining as we go on with the session. So I will start with the lady in the room. Zoe, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Can you all hear me? Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Zoe from Whole Planet Foundation. We are a corporate foundation of Whole Foods Market, which is an American grocery business with stores in the US, UK, and Canada. I'm based in Nairobi and I manage Whole Planet's partnerships in East and Southern Africa. The foundation's mission is improving access to business capital for micro entrepreneurs, including smallholder farmers. And we have a global presence now and currently have partnerships in 77 countries. Look forward to chatting with everybody.
Over to you, Solomon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Solomon Makuza. And I am the Executive Director of Guardians for Health International. We are a Rwanda-based for impact organization that works at the intersection of agriculture and nutrition to fight malnutrition. We do this by empowering more than 3,000 families and communities each year with nutrition, health, agriculture education, coupled with agricultural inputs to enable them to grow and eat healthy food. I'm excited and look forward to chat with everyone. Thank you.
Very much, Solomon. Over to you, JohnCarl.
Hi, everyone. My name is JohnCarl. Hope you can hear me. I'm head of product innovation and distribution with Farmerline. I've been with Farmerline for about 2 years, and our mission has been to create lasting profits for farmers everywhere. We started in Ghana some 7 years ago, and we are currently reaching out to some 11 other African countries. I'm based in our Kumasi office, currently in Tamale, the northern part of Ghana, working with some partner agribusinesses. So I'm excited about this session, and I hope to share our experiences. Thank you.
Much, JohnCarl. Over to you, Carl.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kondwani Chijota, and I'm the head of growth of GGEM Farming. We are an agriculture organization based in Kota in Malawi, central Malawi. And what we do is we train farmers as well as link them to markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think through the chat, I've also noticed that we have our fifth panelist, Beatrice. Perhaps, Beatrice, if you could share your audio and video, and then you can introduce yourself. In the meantime, I can also, as she does that, I can also just give you a small overview of how the conversation is going to go. The conversation is going to take 1 hour, so 60 minutes. And for everyone that is joining us with their through the chat, you could also engage in the conversation and ask your questions and your interventions through the chat. And if we do have Beatrice ready, she could also share her video and audio, but if not, we're just going to go straight into our first conversation or our first into our questions. So the way that this discussion is going to be framed, we will hear from each panelist for about 6 minutes on the different questions that they're going to be addressing. And I'm going to be highlighting those questions so that everyone that is following us knows exactly what the panelists will be conversating about. So we had the first question was, what is the fundamental gap in the agricultural value chain your work seeks to address? And then the second question was, how is COVID affecting this goal right now? And the third question is around rethinking your approach and tools and big picture goals in the longer term. So without further ado, I don't know if Zoe, you would like to start?
There's also a video that Ko is going to share. Do you do that later, Ko?
Okay, yeah, exactly. So I just received the video. Let me just share it in a few minutes. If you can bear with me.
I'm also happy to talk first if you want a little bit of time to work that out. How does that sound?
That could be great. That could be great. And then I could already start with showing your, we could start with your video. Oh, I think the video is almost ready. I think with the technical issues, I think we should start with Zoe, and then so shall I share a presentation because I have it opened?
Sure, please.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so here we are, sharing my screen. Can we all see my screen?
No. Sorry, we can't see
okay,
it.
Yes, it's loading.
I can also start talking while that loads. It's fine.
All right. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first question, oh, okay. The first question was about the fundamental gap in agriculture value chain that our work seeks to address. So I think if all of you attended the session with the keynote speaker, Mohammed Yunus, we heard from him about how micro enterprise. Sorry, could you mute your mic? Is that all right? Thanks. Okay. We heard today from Mohammed Yunus about how micro enterprises often have a hard time getting access to the capital that they need to start and grow their businesses. And for smallholders, farmers who hope to generate income from their farm activities, they might face similar challenges. They can't access quality inputs, or they can't afford to put in the investment at the beginning of the season. So what Whole Planet Foundation does is we seek to help entry-level entrepreneurs access affordable business capital and loans. And in the agriculture value chain, this means we provide working capital funding to partners who help ensure smallholder farmers can get timely seeds, fertilizers, and other inputs on credit so that they can be set up for a profitable harvest at the end of the season. And I guess you can see, if you see the screen share, and I think you have to double click on it for it to be full screen, for it to be larger. You'll see that we fund different models. And we started in 2005 with a focus on traditional microfinance, a focus that was very much inspired by Gurmeen and Mohammed Yunus's work. And you can see in this slide that this area still remains the largest portion of our portfolio at about 80% or 88% if you include the work with Savings and Loans Group. But in 2010, we started to expand to fund agricultural finance projects, which focus on smallholder farmers. And since then, with authorized funds to agriculture have averaged about 12% of our annual funding. All of our commitments to agriculture finance have been in Africa, even though we work globally. So that's a brief introduction to how we're working in the agricultural space. And I'll move on to the second question, which is how is COVID affecting this goal right now? I would say in terms of our partners' work, they've all faced different challenges in the field. And a few of our partners are on this panel today, so I'll let them talk about that from their perspective. From Whole Planet Foundation's perspective, I can talk about this in terms of programs, in terms of our operations, and in terms of funding. And from the program side, it seemed that our agricultural projects are really faring better than our other traditional microfinance partners. Examples are the uptake in demand is high for services, repayment for loans have been really strong, and our partners have different theories on why this is the case. For some, they say it's because there's seasonality and long lead time. Some say that it's because the pandemic has had a higher impact on urban versus rural areas. And other partners are talking about concerns over food security and a renewed focus on agriculture. Other programmatic issues we're really thinking about balancing how to accommodate and prioritize different partners' needs during both the crisis and recovery periods. And in most cases, we've been pretty flexible when it comes to things like meeting targets, repaying any soft loans that we've given, and when to disperse additional funds to a partner. Moving on to the impact on operations, the way we work, we usually have a very detailed field visit to all of our partners once a year, and we also do visits as part of the pre-award due diligence process. So this year, since March, we haven't been able to travel at all. The field team hasn't traveled because of COVID. And it means that we're checking in with our partners remotely, and we've been losing that face time with partners and the granularity that you can get from an in-person visit. And what that means in the longer term, I guess I'll talk a little bit about later in the next question. So in terms of funding, as a corporate foundation, our revenue streams have historically been really linked to the parent company's stakeholders. And with the global and US economy, especially in flux this year, our revenue stream is pretty unpredictable. So we have to be pretty cautious in making new commitments. Now I'm going to move on to the question about how we're rethinking our approach and tools and big picture goals in the longer term. And I think the most interesting one here is really how we're thinking about our approach. As I mentioned before, the foundation's mission is to support financial inclusion for micro businesses, including in the agriculture sector. And so recently we've been thinking a lot about how we can also be more inclusive in our own funding too, in the way we fund. And this question, I think, has taken on even more relevance as COVID has brought some inequities, global inequities, into sharp relief. So when it comes to getting resources and philanthropic capital to small, locally owned organizations, I'm sure all of you have heard this before, but a lot of grant-making entities might say things like, and social investors might say things like, it's too difficult to do to reach smaller locally owned companies because of ticket size, because of a minimum ticket size requirement, or scale and outreach targets, or ability to manage the M&E and reporting systems, or just maybe it takes more time to identify and manage smaller organizations that don't have the same visibility and exposure and systems as more established large international NGOs. So, and I would say that at Whole Planet, we've said some of the same things before. And now we're really thinking about how do we change our processes, requirements, KPIs, all of that whole bag to be more inclusive. Before COVID, Whole Planet Foundation launched an initiative to make our funds more accessible to smaller organizations. We did that by lowering the minimum project size and the project period. We're a little more flexible in accepting early stage companies. And I'm happy to say that GEM Farming, who is represented by Co on this panel, is the first partner that we funded under this initiative. Since then, we've also been reworking our KPIs to assess and give weight to various forms of local ownership and community buy-in when we're looking at partnerships and potential new partnerships as well. And as Ziti mentioned in the panel right before this on the main stage, this type of questioning and reorienting really takes humility, like a hard look at your organization and how you're doing things. And we're really still thinking through these issues and tweaking our approach. So I'll move on to, how am I doing on time? Am I okay? Yvonne? Yep, okay. I don't have much more. So moving on to tools, how we're rethinking our tools. I mentioned this before, that we travel quite a lot. So it seems likely that we're not going to be able to travel at the same pace as we used to, not for a while. And I think this will be a big change for the way we conduct due diligence and monitoring. In the past, our field team, our small field team traveled up to 70% of the year, and we're thinking about different tools we can use to still have robust partnerships and engage our partners, but minimizing the reporting and deliverables burden on partners as well. So we're thinking about different ways to do that, and maybe we'll, in line with the earlier kind of shifts in approach that I talked about, maybe we'll spend a little bit less time visiting partners that we have a long-standing relationship with. Maybe we'll spend a little bit more time on the ground seeking out new partners who are a bit more off the radar, or more time getting to know newer partners as well. We're not really sure yet what the long-term changes will be, but we're talking about a lot of these things now. And then in terms of the last point is really about the big picture goals. For now, our big picture goal remains really unchanged. And fundamentally, it's how do we best help micro businesses access business capital? But within that goal, we're seeing some shifts this year. I can say, especially in my portfolio that I cover, across the different models that we support, a lot of partners are investing more in agriculture and in rural outreach and focusing on issues like resilience and food security. It's hard to say for now, I think, whether these shifts will have long-term staying power or whether they are a short-term change due to COVID and other related economic dynamics. But I think it's pretty exciting to see how this, this pandemic and this time has really been an opportunity for a lot of people and a lot of organizations to rethink how they work. So I'll stop there and hand it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Zoe, for your inspirational work at the Whole Planet Foundation. So I think we've got Ko's video. If other panelists don't mind, we could also play it before Ko goes next week as well. So I will stop sharing. Can everyone see my screen? Hello?
Yes, Ivan, I see your screen.
I see it.
Okay, perfect. Playing it now.
The Future Summit presents us with the opportunity to redefine what success looks like. As the age of farmers across Africa lowers, the continent now of youth in agriculture, and all with the goal to build their own success stories. Context, data, infrastructure, and value chain thinking will expedite youth inclusive development across the agricultural sector. There is need for organizations to fill the gaps and facilitate system development so that youth can select their agricultural tracks and thrive in them.
Hello, I think we're having a little bit of an internet issue. I think the video is a little bit blurry. Perhaps we're going to share the link to the video to the participants. I think our technical assistants, our team who's technically assisting us, is going to share the video with all the participants. But going in the interest of time, we could go, Ko, if you could please also go through the questions and how at GEM Farming you're also.
Thank you very much. I think I'll address the first question first, which is what is the gap GEM Farming is trying to fill in the value chain? For us, we want to boost production as well as market access for farmers. Our mission is obviously to put more money into farmers' pockets. This is because smallholder in Malawi, and they're also the most poor and also the most vulnerable. So our key is to use the assets they already have to commercialize their methods to boost production. We do this obviously by supplying them with inputs, by supplying them with agriculture extension services, as well as a complete market, so that they don't have to worry about the market part. What they actually concentrate on mostly is production. So that is the gap we're trying to fill to make sure that we are our farmers' partner. In terms of the second question, in the interest of time, COVID has affected this. I think COVID has, I heard this recently, that when the tide is out, you see who's swimming naked. I think COVID has been an amplifier to see what are the problems and the bottlenecks that still remain in agriculture, especially here in Malawi. Fortunately, I think unlike other countries in Africa, we did not go into a complete lockdown. However, you can tell that money circulating in the economy has stopped, and this ultimately affects the smallholder farmers because historically they actually earn the least. So that is one of the biggest problems with COVID, that it has really exposed people to the dangers of, I suppose, inconsistency, and these are the people who are most vulnerable to shock. So I think that's what COVID has done in terms of our work, and to see what other things we need to do to better help our farmers. On the third question, in terms of how you're rethinking, I wouldn't say we are rethinking our approach. I would say we are trying to amplify our approach in terms of how do we make sure that more farmers earn a respectable income from farming. How do we make sure that production is boosted in light of climate change? How do we make sure that this is sustainable? So these are the questions we are answering on the ground with strategically going forward, and also learning from our friends like at Farmerline, the incorporation of technology. Malawi, I think, unlike other countries in East Africa or West Africa, I think we're still behind in terms of using or completely accepting technology. Our penetration level in terms of even mobile phones is at 30%. So you can see that there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that farmers we're on the same playing field as everyone else going forward. So that is something that we're working on strategically to make sure that how else, I guess, we can work with farmers in terms of them accessing technology, how best, and I think the key with the technology, it has to be nuanced technology in terms of context. We can't just copy and paste something that has worked, for example, in Ghana into Malawi when the systems are not there. So it is that whole mindset, everything has to be built at once, which is a lot of work. But for us, it's something that we're working on, and something that we're glad to do with partners like Whole Planet, who fully understand and appreciate what is happening on the ground. I think in the interest of time, I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. So going through the different questions, Solomon, maybe you can also share your insights on how you've been rethinking the future and how COVID has been affecting your goals right now.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. I think at Guidance for Health, one of the irony that we see, and I believe most of you also sees, that the majority of the world's people are farmers, and yet they remain in poverty, and millions of children are malnourished. So the disconnect between food and nutrition is alarming. If you look at the statistics, even prior to the onset of the pandemic, we had more than 690 people identified as chronically food insecure. Then 250% of those people are in Africa, and then the number of chronically malnourished children, 1 in 5 are in that situation, with 40% of those in Africa. So the statistics are startling, and what it means is that a lot of smallholder farmers are farming, and yet children and expectant mothers are not getting and eating a diet that provides to the nutritional needs of their bodies. Now, the simple concept that access to food alone doesn't equal good nutrition is at the core of what Guardians for Health does. And for more than a decade, we've been working to food when farm all the way to the table to ensure that communities and families have access not only to food, but to nutritious foods that make up a healthy diet. So that has been a fundamental gap that we've been trying to address. We also take pride in working at the community level and engaging with the smallholder farmers really to curate the solutions to the main issues that they face. In terms of how the COVID-19 has affected us, at the macro level, overall the pandemic has exposed further the existing challenges in our food systems. I mean, food and nutrition security were already under strain of things like climate change, increased pest and disease pressure, to mention but a few. And from the program perspective, one of some of the challenges that we faced were the inability for us really to connect in person with the farmers. That was one, and then Rwanda had to take total lockdown as one of the measures. So we were unable, for instance, to provide access of seeds for farmers to be able to plant on time. We are unable to deliver the nutrition, health, and agricultural trainings as planned. So all of those have really delayed, I would say, the progress that we're expecting to receive this year. And when you go, that is on the supply side. When you look on the consumer demand side, we've been seeing diminishing that quality primarily through the decline in the demand of vegetables, fruits, and animal source foods, which are the main source of essential macronutrients in diets. And unfortunately, this leaves limited choice to the most vulnerable families, which leads to the shift towards the monotonous nutrient poor diets. And from the operations, as I was speaking, in addition to have the trade, inability for us to access and work with the smallholder farmers, it's also been really tricky, for these families that we are relying on the yields from their farms. Really to have the food on the table, and this is, I will speak a little bit about what have been some of the immediate responses. Now, on the other side, the pandemic also really brought into sharp contrast the need of resilient and adaptive food security and nutrition interventions, and the need to bring people left behind into choices for fulfilling lives. And it's in this light that we've been thinking about the long term. And I should say that, what on our side as Guardians for Health, maybe what we've had to do is to pivot our delivery approach, but the mission and the philosophy remain untouched. We can all agree that food and nutrition security, remains more apart than ever before. So some of the things that we've done, I put them in the immediate response, the short term and the long term. In the immediate response, we've worked with the smallholder farmers really to identify their needs, and what we saw is that their capacity was limited in terms of purchasing inputs such as seeds, and so we've been investing a lot into providing agricultural inputs and training to the vulnerable community members so that they can ensure food security from the supply side. Now, in the medium and long term thinking process, and I would like to articulate this through the farm to the table lens, what happens from the farm or garden if you go to the table lens. A few things that we are committed to do as an organization. A is supporting enhanced homestead food production to increase access to nutrient-rich vegetables, fruits, so that we can improve diet quality. So again, as I said, we've been providing new trainings and access to quality seeds and vegetables. I must also highlight that we are we've learned and appreciated the need of promoting the growth and consumption of traditional indigenous vegetables. So amaranth, cowpeas, African nightshade, to mention but a few, have proved for such a long time to provide much higher amounts of important minerals. They are more resilient to climate change, and they can easily adapt to local growth conditions. And they have been part of our cuisine for ages. The second thing that we are doing, again, going forward is continuing to advocate or be a catalyst, if you will, for accelerated shift from the prevailing narrative of food systems that merely feeds people to having food systems that nourish people. Now, we believe as an organization in changing systems and not just treating symptoms. And for this to happen with the quantity of production to a greater focus on both the quality of what is produced and targeting both the supply side and the demand side or the consumer side. The third thing is increased meaningful engagement of women and their partners in agriculture, just really to make sure that we are having the entire household being targeted. Lastly, is really promotion of low-cost, local farming solutions that can help small farmers increase their yield and predictability of produce. I will stop from here in the interest of time and happy to chat further.
Thank you very much, Solomon. Also, just as a kind reminder to everyone that is following us through this session, if you have any questions, please send them through the chat box, and then we're going to be, and if you have any specific question for specific panelists, please mention their name, and then we're going to be directing the questions as soon as we start with the Q&A in a few minutes. Now, over to you, JohnCarl. I would like to also hear your perspective and your views on, and also your different activities as a way to move into the future of agriculture. Over to you, JohnCarl.
All right, thank you, Ivan. Would you kindly share the presentation so that I run through it quickly?
Going to share.
Okay. All right, while you do that, I can just start. I'm attempting the three questions that my co-panelists answered. The first one being, what are the fundamental challenges that we are seeking to solve, or the fundamental gaps in agriculture that we are seeking to address? And just as my colleagues mentioned, smallholder farmers are not resourced enough to be in control of their farm profits. That's basically the same issue that we are also seeking to resolve. And the reasons, as they mentioned, okay, so Ivan, you can go to the next slide because I'm already, yeah, the reasons for this situation is that smallholder farmers live in remote areas far from the city centers where the resources and the service providers are located. The initial solution to that was to make extension services available, but that is also inadequate. And then, like also mentioned by, I think, Ko or Zoe, these smallholder farmers are illiterates, and that reduces their power to engage with various people, service providers, and making decisions on what the best practices are, what the best inputs are for their farms. Yes, so okay, good, we have the slide now. Great, so Farmerline, we combine a network of agents and technology to address these challenges. And we've done that over the past 7 years, and then this year COVID came in, so that leads me to the second question, which is how COVID affected our operations. Administratively, it wasn't really challenging because most of our administrative staff have worked remotely for a while, so it's just on the field operations side that we had some stalls due to COVID. So disruptions in transportation and the supply of farm inputs were hampered for a while, and then also we were not able to have in-person meetings with aggregators or people through whom we could reach smallholder farmers. That was a challenge, especially in the months of March, April, May. This meant that we had to put our in-person trainings on hold. So like I mentioned, we combined both in-person trainings and then technology in building the capacity of farmers. But with the lockdown and then the restrictions that it came with, we couldn't have our in-person training. So we had to rely solely on the technology to reach farmers to serve farmers with information. A key thing on the challenges before I come to this was also the fact that we were supplying, in 2019, we were supplying smallholder farmers with free nose masks. And then after COVID came, the price of nose masks, first of all, they were not even available to purchase for them. And then the prices shot up at a point to more than $1 for a nose mask for farmers. That became very hard for us to continue that agenda. So the next question is how we are adapting. We are adapting in the midst of the situation. No, you can go back to the previous slide, Ivan. Previous slide, please. Okay, yes. So what we are doing is to reinforce the use of technology instead of relying heavily on the in-person meetings, like I mentioned. So interestingly, our mesh data has been very useful during COVID in even dealing with the misinformation that we had in the rural areas. So we had to work with translators to translate the prevention tips into the major languages in Ghana, and then had that sent out to smallholder farmers, and then reinforce reinforce the sending of good agricultural practices and then weather forecasts, all of that. So basically relying heavily on our technology to reach farmers while reducing the number of in-person meetings that we had to have with them. Next slide. Next slide, Ivan. Yes, so going forward, what we are seeking to do is to deliver farm inputs, which we have been doing in the past year. So like Ko mentioned, it's also like reinforcing things that we've been doing. Make sure that quality inputs are available to farmers in their communities. Now there is more reason that they cannot leave their communities to come to district centers or regional capitals to get input. So it's just reinforcing our logistics and making sure that these inputs are available to smallholder farmers. As we've done in the past, these are on credit, so farmers who don't have the wherewithal to pay for inputs upfront can get these and then can get inputs on credit, work with it, and then after harvest, they pay us back. So this is something that we are expanding. Now we are covering about 8 regions in Ghana. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be serving farmers in all the regions in Ghana and then beyond. Next slide, please. Ivan, do I have you? Great. Yes, so this is quite interesting because it's the latest addition to our services to farmers, which is reliable and fair access to market. We had solved one half of all their challenges, which is building their capacity to increase their yields, basically. And then we observed that there was this gap of even unable to sell what they harvest. So from 2020, this year, we started connecting farmers to reliable and fair market access. As we speak, beyond the crops that are listed here, we are helping farmers who produce maize, rice, soya, sorghum to get access to market at fair prices. Here again, our technology is useful, which is having farmers to be paid via mobile money instead of via cash. We all understand the risks that come with cash, and now the risk of COVID spread that have to do with in-person transactions. So aggregators and agribusinesses that we work with are able to use our technology to pay farmers via mobile money for whatever produce that they source or buy from them. Additionally, for people that we supply or people who buy from farmers through us, they're able to use our technology to track and then trace everything. So you're able to trace your every bag of maize all the way back to the farmer, and all the insights that are associated with that are available for our partners for free. So basically, it's just adding up to complete the cycle of services that we offer to smallholder farmers, while reinforcing the technology bits to make sure that even when in-person meetings or interactions are hampered, there is still resources and information that are made available to smallholder farmers wherever they are. Yes, I think I will leave it here, and then I'm sure when follow-up questions come up, we can address them in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, JohnCarl. I think we have our fifth speaker, Beatrice. Before we go into the Q&A session, Beatrice a few minutes as well to introduce her work with AWAN Africa, and then we can also proceed with the Q&A session. I know for the interest of time, Beatrice, you'll have to be a little bit brief as you walk through the questions, but yeah. Let me know as soon as you're ready, and then I can share your slides as well.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry we had a lot of hiccups, but I think you just it's okay. I'm going to win this session and share what we had today in the few minutes. I'm ready. This is Beatrice Gakuba. Ivan, do you have our slides, or should I just... You have our slides, or just without the slides?
The slides. I am sharing them as we speak.
All right, thank you, thank you. Yeah, okay, I'll take this time now while we're waiting to introduce myself, the organization. My name is Beatrice Gakuba. Again, I apologize for the technical part, but I'm sure we'll catch up in a few minutes. AWAN Africa is a network that comprises of women and youth in agribusiness. We have over 2,000 members and who are ongoing concerned businesses in 42 countries. And they work along a lot of value chain, from horticulture to grains and cereals and everything. The previous session I watched from the beginning is that I'm talking about the Future Summit. And for us in agriculture, future in agriculture and future the continent is the youth in agriculture. Every year we have 600 million of young people that comes to the market on Africa, and it's the only sector that can provide employment. What is wage and self-employment is agriculture. So yes, the future is agriculture, and the future is youth and women. Women, why? Because they make 70% of the labor in the agriculture sector. You have noticed, for those who have gone on Twitter today, they have seen our video that showed the retirement, trying the whole to the museum. Our question and what I want to share with everyone, and I want everyone to take away from this Future Summit side of AWAN Africa, is how do we envisage to grow the African economies, to build the future on the continent without mechanizing agriculture? How do we expect to create employment in the agriculture sector for the youth without mechanizing and industrializing Africa? I like the first session when they were talking about, we were talking about this constructing ideas, but I think we have to make sure that the Africa we want overpowers the Africa we don't want. And obviously the Africa we don't want in the agriculture sector is the handheld hoe. There is no way we are going to feed the continent, feed even if you think about even feeding the global community without mechanizing and industrializing. 60% of the arable land on the world is in Africa. Now, how do we expect to grow the sector with a traditional hoe? So I think when we talk about the future, let's link our intention into our actions. Yeah, let us think about mechanizing and industrializing. I think this was the message. I think one of the questions also, Ivan, that you wanted us to talk about is the data that we needed to present. And I think this is what we were before COVID. AWAN Africa, with our members, we had all that. And then this is what happened with COVID. But this is, we cannot blame everything on COVID, right? Because COVID actually did in our sector, it was to highlight the gaps that existed already. So it's only where I want also to commend our heads of state, like people said also in the previous presentation, that although we had very proactive measures in our countries for the lockdowns and close everything, we also highlighted the gap that exists in our value chain, in our supply chain, whether it be short supply chain or long supply chain. So the food distribution was the problem. You can see that. 91% of our 2,000 member lost revenue, reduced production 60%, post-harvest 45%, food increase 41%. But when you look at the post-harvest and the reduced production, those are not only because of COVID, it's because already pre-COVID we had gaps in these sectors. Yeah. Go ahead, and then we have also, I wanted something that's to share about also the literacy in the agriculture. You will see that some of our members, as you go with the slide, people talk about digitalization these days, but when you look at our figures and you look at our videos that we'll have time to share when they put them on YouTube, is that only 5% of our members were able to adapt their business to digitalization, going and selling online. And 80% of that 4% only youth who have access to digital knowledge. And yes, agriculture in Africa, the face is female and is very illiterate. So in the future, and as we look into the future, we have to look into addressing all those gaps, especially in access to knowledge, literacy, in financial inclusion, in market access, in trade facilitation, and in agri-technology. Those are our four pillars in AWAN, and we have a lot of data, and I would like the audience, anyone feel free to contact us, we can provide you with the information. But there is going the package of information that we need to deliver, especially when we are looking at the new created Africa Free Trade Area, which is the largest market in the world. How do we prepare our youth who are going to embrace the agriculture sector to prepare to enter that market? How do we even prepare them to even respond to our demand on food security without mechanizing, without industrializing, without providing affordable finance at a flexible rate, interest rate? The previous speakers talked about we need to invest ourselves in our own economies ourselves, the Africa and the African diaspora. When are we going to do that? All of you sitting, most of you sitting in that panel, any African that we know, has a relative, even though we live in the city, but we have relatives, aunties, cousins, grandmas, who are still tilling the land with a handhold hoe. How do we expect? There is a disconnect between our intentions, our visions, and what is really happening in the world of agriculture. And until we address those gaps that exist in the agriculture sector, shall we be able to move forward the continent. And of course, I will not even overemphasize on the fact that the face of African agriculture is female, because the statistics speak for themselves. You have them, and I'd like to everyone and the organizers of this forum. It is really timely because really what is the future of agriculture on the continent? How are we going to look at it? How are we going, again, I repeat this, how are we going to link our intention? How do our intentions to the actions? How are we going to, in 10 years from now, how are we going to report on the Agenda 2030, the Malabo Declaration? I mean, I think my last word is we have to make sure that the Africa we want overpower the Africa we don't want. And I end there. Thank you very much.
I think this is exactly the exciting time that we can engage with the we've been having during the conversation. So first question would go to Zoe. Zoe, we have a question that was addressed to you. 1 second, let me just go through it. All right, so it's Felipe Di Matteo from AMEA, and his question says, I'm going through the whole question. So AMEA is being funded by IFAD for the next 2.5 years with the objective of creating a pipeline of bankable and investable farmer organizations. So to connect these organizations with local MFIs and lenders. So one key objective is to convince MFIs that the framework they use is good enough to create this pipeline of investable farmer organizations. However, a key issue they have is in understanding the needs of MFIs in terms of cooperatives and farmer organizations, professionalization. And his question is that he would really much like to engage in talks with Whole Planet and see if this could work at many. I think this was his intervention. And there's another question actually from Solomon. Solomon, you have a question that says, how do we balance improving production of traditional subsistent food crops, which versus farmer mindsets of growing food to eat when higher value farm output may come from producing for the market? It's also a question that is asked to all the panelists. So whoever has a take on it, please feel free to have that take on it. Thank you. Did we hear the question?
Yes, if am I coming through clearly?
Yes.
I think that's an excellent question without an easy answer. And you know, we'll attempt to share a few thoughts on that. There are two ways looking at it from the farmer's perspective. One of the unfortunately fact that is out there is that the vegetable farmers, you know, are often poorly informed about the market demand and the market prices. So with that, they cannot negotiate fair prices for their produce, and you know, that's a challenge. And I do think one of one of the things to do, which as Guidance for Health we've tried really, is to provide access to information to the smallholder farmers that you partner with, and you know, the information that is able to bring to light, you know, what are the benefits of consuming, you know, what they're producing, but also what are the opportunities that are out there, you know, that they need to engage in. So you know, it's you know, one of the important things that have been helpful for us. Then the second thing really is on the production side. And as I was saying, the vegetable production systems are complex, you know, for a number of reasons. There's diversity of crops, you have different production methods, you have the marketing approaches, they encompass. And I think there is an opportunity really of bringing this together to harness this diversity that we are seeing. And on our side, at the small holder level, if you allow me to take it to the community level, what we've been doing, is to have candid and open conversations with the smallholder farmers and really trying to address, number one, what are the, for instance, what are the traditional indigenous vegetables that thrive within this place where you reside. And secondly, what are the resources that are available within the household that we can leverage on to support a small farmer to be able to produce what they consume, but also really what they take to the market. The third thing, which is an important piece, this is again a systemic change that we want to see. I think there is value and importance of engaging the policy, makers to be able to facilitate, whether it's the market, whether it's, where does the produce go from the farm, to the market and being able to be accessed, especially that when you look around, we are seeing that with increasing urbanizations, opportunities will expand for affordable, nutritious vegetables. So we should be able really to see a systemic change. We should be able to, it's important to see policies that facilitate smallholder farmers where they are. So I would respond to it that way: access to information, leveraging on the existing conditions within the household level environment, and a policy change. Over.
Thank you very much, Solomon.
A quick addition to.
Please.
It's just a line or two. In addition to what Solomon mentioned, is to make sure that in the capacity building of farmers, we go beyond farm information and then include health and nutrition in training farmers. I think that is quite important if farmers understand that it is not all about producing for sales for money, but you need to be healthy, your children have to be healthy, and that a part of that relies on your nutrition, what you eat, along with other things. I think that including that in our training curriculum, or what we inform farmers on would be helpful.
Thank you very much, JohnCarl. Addressed directly to Zoe. The question is as follows. Given the goals of your foundation and the good track record with agriculture microfinance, why does that represent only 12% of, 12% of your portfolio?
Thanks. Yeah, so I would say that first, the way we categorize the different, I think when you saw the slide, the different models that we finance and that we support. For agriculture finance, we're specifically talking about the model where smallholder farmers are getting access to inputs and seeds directly. And usually also there are other wraparound services as well, extension services, maybe marketing services. And so, and our funding also is limited to working capital only. So we only fund, say, whatever, in the case of ag finance, it's whatever funding is needed to procure the inputs that are then lent to farmers on credit. So the definition is a little bit narrow. I would say that in some of our other models that we fund, for example, Microfinance, Savings and Loans Group, Ultra Pro Graduation, that a lot of the activities are also very agriculture focused, but it might not be exactly in that kind of input financing and input credit model that I described before, which is what we consider our agricultural finance model. So I don't have the exact numbers of, how many of our microfinance partners we're funding, where our support is going to farmers groups or VSLAs that are mostly engaged in agricultural activities. But we do try to focus more, because our funding is either free or a local interest, a local currency, no interest loan. It's basically subsidized capital. And so we try to ensure that it really goes to rural areas. And so a lot of those activities, whether it's under the bucket of microfinance or ultra pro graduation or savings and loans group, might also be considered agricultural activities. It's just not in that specific model that I described earlier. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but I'm happy to chat more offline.
Thank you for your intervention. Maybe over to you, Ko. We had a question for all the panelists, but maybe you could have your take on it. The question goes as follows. So what work is being done to emphasize regenerative farming, both for health and sustainability of African soil and human health?
That's a very good question. I think in everything that we're doing in terms of, I think I speak from my peers here from other agriculture organizations, is that sustainable agriculture is the way to go. We understand we're not going to be able to just change the soil. The soil is going to be there and it needs to be there for the next generation. So in everything that we do in terms of allowing the soil to rest, in terms of using cover crops when, for example, you've harvested, what are you doing post-harvest for the land to make sure that there's still carbon going into the soil? These are all things that are packaged into the training part when we are engaging our farmers. So we're not running away from the regenerative agriculture. It's there. And we have components of it when we're training our farmers to making sure that you're covering the whole spectrum. I think just as JohnCarl had earlier pointed out in terms of balancing between producing for consumption and producing for market. It all starts also with the farmer, or you have to engage the farmer first of all. You cannot impose anything on a farmer. They're human beings just like you and I. So you have to understand that what do they value? What are they looking for? What are their goals? Do they understand that if they use this particular way of farming, these are going to be the results? And what we've experienced here in Malawi is show and tell, just like everything else. If the farmer can see that this is going to work for me and they can see the results, once you have a few lead farmers training them in regenerative agriculture, the uptake becomes easier. But you cannot just go there and say, I want you to practice this method when they haven't seen the result for it and when they're still hungry.
Thank you very much, Ko, for your intervention. We have a question for JohnCarl. It's a very straightforward question. It goes as follows. So working with smallholder female farmers, technology means it's more difficult to reach them now. Do you have any programs in place specifically for women?
Yes, we do. Thanks for the question. The first part of it has to do with access to technology, and to make it clear that what is required to work with us is not any complex technology. It's just a basic mobile phone. That is what everybody needs to be able to have access to our information. So a normal feature phone that can receive a call, a phone call is enough. And we know that the mobile penetration in Ghana is now very high, good enough to have a majority of our farmers receiving information. Now, our information is delivered as voice calls in their local languages. So again, there's not a high level of literacy required to interact with it. All you have to do is answer a phone call that gives you information in your local language, telling you about the weather, that is going to rain today, it's not going to rain today, and that is enough for you to make your decision. Or basically giving you, let's say, COVID tips like we did a few months ago, sharing prevention tips in your local languages. So to make it clear, there are very few barriers that prevent, technology barriers that prevent people from accessing our information. It's quite convenient. And yes, we do have special programs for women groups. Basically, we target aggregators or agribusinesses that work with women groups, and all of the services that we provide, there are ways that we repackage them for them. So when it comes to input credit and then the interest rate that is charged on the credit, number of voice messages to be received, and then number of agents that are assigned to them to train them and build their capacity, all of those are areas that we pay special attention to women. And then also for youth as well, we have special solutions for youth. So we have this application we call Coco Link, and that's a mobile application. Youth have access to Android or iOS devices, and they can have like information in various formats, videos, audios, PDFs, and and also exciting content that gets them interested in agriculture. So basically, to answer your question, we do have tailored services for various groups or categories of people.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much. So before I let you go, so if you all had a car and you had one bumper sticker and it said the future of agriculture is, what would be? So the future of agriculture is, everyone just says one word, and then we're going to leave the session and proceed with the different programs of the event. So we will start with Madam Beatrice. The future of agriculture is?
Mechanization.
Mechanization. Thank you very much, Madam Beatrice. Solomon, over to you. The future of agriculture is?
Nourishing the people. Nourishing. The future of agriculture is nourishing the people.
Nourishing the people. Perfect. Thank you very much, Solomon. Over to you, Zoe. What is the future of agriculture? The future of agriculture is?
Market access.
Market access. Thank you very much, Zoe. JohnCarl, over to you. What is
the future of agriculture is technology driven.
Technology driven. And then Joe?
I would say an equitable return for a farmer.
An equitable return for a farmer. All right. Thank you so much to all our panelists today. We do apologize, sincerely apologize for all the technical issues that we've experienced throughout this session, but I guess this is what the new world is. However, we proceeded with great conversations, and thank you so much to all our panelists. So we would like to inform to all the people that are following us that if you would like to continue engaging with all our panelists, I think you've seen their names. You can also see them on the flyer, and you can just go and directly message them using the chat option or using your right side corner of your screen on a place called People, from a place that you can click called People. So thank you very much to everyone. And with this, I am going to end the session. And my name is Yvonne Getoto. It has been a pleasure to host you, all of you. Thank you so much.